Hey, the Longer Podcast and your heads up. This is my thoughts, my initial thoughts, my first dive into how do we create a meaningful life, a life of meaning, and maybe even understanding what a meaningful life bloody is, because I didn't understand that when I first started my little exploration, my little adventure. So if it's important to you, come with me. Let's learn together. Have a listen after this. Hey, this is the Personal Development Unplugged podcast, where we use hypnosis. Yeah, hypnosis. NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Don't worry what it is. It's just a mass of processes that we're going to get you to change. Change to let go of anxiety, low self-esteem, and create massive supreme inner confidence. But that's confidence in your competence and competence in your confidence, which means you can do anything and be safe, to enjoy the world as it should be, with you at the helm, creating the life that you want. That's what this podcast is about. You and being the best you could be, singing from your real voice, aligned with your mission, aligned with your passions. That's what it's about. So if you're interested in letting go of anxiety, if you're interested in letting go of fear, guilt, all those blooming syndromes, imposter syndromes, and every little bit of the mind which is negative, then have a listen here, because we've got some wonderful processes and lots of good conversations between you and me to get us both thinking in such wonderful ways. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Just take the chance to have a listen.
This is Personal Development Unplugged with Paul Clough.
In simplicity, there is genius.
In simplicity, there is genius.
Hey, my friends, the Longer Podcast, and if you want to join me in this dive into, creating a meaningful life. Been thinking about it for a long time, and I want to tell you a story of how I got into even thinking about this, because I've read all my books and things like that, and nothing really hit me. I'm sure it will hit me as I dive deeper into this, but I was thinking, because as I was exploring some of the emotions I was encountering, and over a period of time, they've been growing a little bit, and it's all about time. What is it about time? Wasting time. I've got this thing that, and I've always had it, if I'm not early, at least 2 or 3 minutes early, I'm bloody late. And that's always been the case, and it's always served me well because I've always been on time. It gives me a bit of anxiety if I'm a little bit getting close to the mark, but it's not big anxiety. It just gives me that little bit of, the intention is, I guess, be there on time, take a breath, and no worries. And it works. But this thing about time and wasting time, because I guess maybe even the older I get and the things that I stop doing and start doing and want to do, because life changes, doesn't it? As you stop one form of work or career and you start finding time to do other stuff, the stuff I'd really love to do. But I explored it in a way that, because I was finding I wasn't doing the things I really wanted to do. And what was the reason? Why would I be putting off things that I really wanted to do? And it kept coming back to, well, you're not doing them, Cloughie, but you're also wasting time not doing them. But I also couldn't get the inclination to start doing that stuff in the time that I got. And then at the end of the day, I'd be going, oh, bloody hell. Wasted again. So I began exploring, where did this come from? And as I was doing my little, just listening inside, asking questions, puzzle booking and things like that, I got this thing about guilt. Guilty about time. And the thing is, I was feeling guilty about not using time. That's bloody strange, isn't it? But it's always like that, a bit counterintuitive, a bit opposite. I tend to find conflict seem to be the opposite of what you're having the problem with. In fact, it's the opposite but the same. So I was conflicted about time, being guilty of not using time, but also feeling guilty about using time for myself. But I couldn't understand it, so I kept going inside, just listening and talking and things like that. And I was taken back a little bit to some parts of my darker days in another life when I had a real bad time. I want to explain it to you. I've done it a couple of times-ish before, but it didn't matter about what caused it or whatever, but it was in those times when things were really shit and I didn't like it, and whether breakdown or not, I don't know, all that stuff. But the thing was, I was doing a process that took me back in time to learn. You see, I do know, and I do believe 100+% that if I can learn, and if we can learn from the events, significant emotional events that cause negative and positive, but mainly we deal with it in negative terms, learn from a negative situation, then we don't need to have that emotion anymore because we've got what we learned. And if you got what you learned, you don't need the emotion to remind you. And that, it always works. The events go into the past and you can think to yourself, well, they were a bad time back then, but they don't affect me now. And that's the thing. So I was thinking about this, and I did this process in a slightly different way. I don't know why. I did it in a way that I guess, well, it's not the way you use the process, but I did it. I went back, instead of going to the root cause of all this guilt, I went to this time, this significant time in my life where I was being drawn to, basically. And it was about how I was using time back then. Was that part of the cause? I know I had the best intentions of what I was doing, but, I was a busy boy and using time, and maybe I was using all the time that I had on different things and not maybe the most important things. Who knows? But anyway, I went back to that time and got my unconscious mind to learn from those events so I could have them in the future. I didn't need that emotion of guilt. But then what I did was quite strange. I took those learnings, and instead of just coming back to the now, which is what I do with that process, I came through time, as it were, from way back then to now, imagining if I had those learnings back then, how my past would have changed. So it was like going into a now that was in the past, and then the next now and the next now, coming all the way back to the current moment in time. And as if I had all those learnings, and I didn't know what was happening. It wasn't traumatic or anything like that. It was just like a knowingness. I always find that it's like a knowingness of coming through time, and my unconscious mind is doing the work and working it all out for me. Come back to the present time, open your eyes, and you know what? I felt so much better. And I couldn't explain exactly how I felt better, but I just had this like knowingness that things had changed. And I started to think then, okay, well, what am I going to do about this time? Because something in my head came into this thing about having a meaningful life. Now, what is a meaningful life? We've all got different thoughts about it, but when I thought about it deeply, I didn't really know. So I did the thing that we do nowadays. I Googled it. I Googled a meaningful life. And you know what? The first result was absolutely bloody useless. I'll read you what it says. Just hang on. A meaningful life is something that cannot be expressed. Well, but I wanted someone to express what a meaningful life was. So cheers, Google. That's absolutely brilliant. And then I'm going to pick up my puzzle book now, and I'll tell you exactly what I thought then. Because I went a little deeper, scrolled down a little bit on what is a meaningful life. And it was a feeling of engagement, connecting to your purpose, connecting to your passions, your gifts, and your highest values. Ooh, that sounds a bit better. Connection to your purpose, your passions, and your gifts. Highest values are always there, in my mind anyway. And something inspired me in my puzzle book, my lovely puzzle book, to do something called Ikigai. I think it's spelled Ikigia. And Ikigai was, I think, initially created to find your purpose for being here. But purpose was in the definition of a meaningful life. And it's basically 3 circles. 3 circles. Each circle means something. So one circle would contain all your passions. One circle for me would then contain all my purpose. And the other circle would contain my gifts, because they're the 3 things that this definition gave me. And it seemed to be a good thing to start off with. And then what you do, you lay one circle slightly over each one. So they're all intersecting. So in the middle, you've got like this little triangle. It's got slightly rounded sides, but it's like a triangle where the 3 all overlap. Because I felt when they all overlap, right in that middle is the makeup, the contents of a meaningful life. So I started to look, what are my passions? The things I'm really excited about, I guess. You know, the things that I was just really hungry for when I was in the moment, the flow, when it took no energy and I was excited and I was making progress and things were happening. That's what I'm really passionate about. So I started to think about that. But then I thought, well, what are my gifts? Well, I guess my gifts are not just the natural abilities, because I don't always believe abilities are natural. You know, you're not naturally gifted that way. Some people seem to be more gifted that way. But some people, I guess that's the whole point about learning and being a better you and striving to learn more and do more. That is a gift, I think, the gift of learning and doing more, and you create your own gifts. The things that you're good at. That's what I thought. The things I'm bloody good at. And you can learn them. And I didn't know hypnosis when I didn't know hypnosis. And then I found hypnosis and hypnotherapy and NLP and helping people. And it just worked out that way. And I think I'm bloody good at it. But I didn't, right at the beginning, didn't know anything about it at all. So I don't think it was a gift. But I've learned it and learned it well because I've put a lot of passion into it, I guess. So that's a crossover now, isn't it? You see that crossover between the passions and the gifts, the things that you love doing, you're passionate about, and the things that you're good at. You put them together, and there's a little bit where they overlap. And then I thought about what's purpose and what is the purpose, that circle containing my purpose? And I put it into something like this. You know, this is that selfless service. Doing things for no want of a return. I thought that also means like making a difference. So purpose is making a difference and selfless service. And I thought to myself, so if I'm doing the things I'm passionate about, which I'm good at, and they're coming together in a way of selfless service and making a difference, that's a meaningful life. And it seemed to make sense. But then I thought, does everything, in order to have a meaningful life, does everything have to be in that center? Do we always have to be making a difference? Do we always have to be using our gifts, and do we always have to be using the things that we're passionate about? Because some of the things that I was or had been putting off, well, they weren't going to necessarily make a difference to the world. They weren't necessarily being directly part of selfless service. So I thought maybe that I'm not allowed to do them then. Do the things that give me enjoyment, but it's not selfless service, not making a difference to the world. Maybe they're the things I've got to give up. And I didn't want to give them up. That had been the whole point. I'd been wanting to do them, and I'd been guilty about you spending the time on them and therefore not doing them, and then feeling guilty about wasting my time. See, there's that conflict going on, that direct conflict. So I thought to myself, well, let's just experiment. Now let's just dive a little bit deeper on these things. Think about like going to the gym, doing exercise. You see, if you're not passionate about it, and I have to say I'm not passionate about going to the gym. I enjoy it. I look forward to it, which is something different for me. Never used to, but I enjoy going to the gym. But I do enjoy trying to get fit, striving to get better. But it's not passion. Am I gifted at it? Not really. But I learn new exercises to make a difference. Make a difference to me, though. But the thing is, what I thought was, well, if I'm not reasonably fit, reasonably healthy, let's put that into a bigger context of healthiness. If I'm not healthy in my physical body, how can I do the things that I'm passionate about? How can I improve the gifts I've got? And when I put them all together, how can then I make a difference to this world in selfless service if I'm not physically fit enough. So actually, going to the gym for me is like an energy, putting money in the bank, as it were, I guess, putting a deposit in towards that meaningful life. I thought, well, okay, what about drawing, art? I mean, I'm passionate about it. Haven't been doing it because of this guilty stuff, but I was passionate about it. And I think, I've got a little better at it over time. And I could get even better, and that would make me even happier. But again, it's not selfless service. It's not making a difference. It's not making a difference to anybody else, but it might make a difference to me. But it actually makes me feel better. It's part of, say, mental health, because you're focusing on doing one thing. You're learning new techniques, which gets your brain and those neural pathways firing and wiring together. That's going to make a difference, isn't it? It's going to make a difference to me as a person. And therefore, I can then use my passions, my gifts, and selfless service to make a difference to the world. So maybe they're the ingredients of making your life meaningful. So things like that don't have to be unbalanced. I don't like the word balance. They're not in balance. They become in harmony with a meaningful life. So just socializing, where you're connecting with others, which is something that every human being needs. It needs some type of connection. We'll talk about the loneliness thing another day again, because without that connection, maybe our passions wane. Maybe we don't strive to learn so much, and we don't then do the things that will make a difference. And therefore, our life will be less meaningful. So I just thought, well, I'm now okay with doing the things that are like a deposit of your energy, or creating a good mental health, physical health, striving to learn, making me feel good, which will allow me to do all those three things again and create in harmony a meaningful life. And the thing about this is, and the bit I love, is you can always be more passionate. You can always learn more. You can always do more. So that meaningful life is never, it's a target or a goal I don't believe you'll ever reach, because nothing is going to be perfect, which is a wonderful thing, because we're going to keep striving to do more. And it's going to make a difference. And I thought to myself, well, how? This is all very intellectual, Cluffy. You're doing pretty well. You've come through a good bit of thinking, and it was good. It was deep. Hurt my head a little bit while I was going around these things. And I thought, well, how'd you do this, though? Because we all know that if you know this stuff, that's one thing. But if you know it and you don't do it, then you might as well not even know it. We've got to do. We've got to take action. We talk about that, becoming a master of what we know, and doing what we know and knowing what we do. But doing it is always doing in those two sentences. So I thought, how can I remind myself? So when I look at something and I got this time available and I want to do something, how do I know that it's going to make or be part of creating that meaningful life? And I thought, well, I love questions. We love questions here, don't we? So what type of questions could we ask? Well, there's a really great question. Just before you do anything, you just ask yourself, is this going to make my life better or worse? Is it going to improve my life? Is it going to make a difference? Am I going to learn something? Is it going to help me develop mentally, physically? And if it does, then I'm going to do it. I won't feel guilty then, because I know I've, and this is the thing, isn't it? The key. I've done it with intention, and not with just the intention of doing that one thing to my best ability, but I've done that one thing to my best ability with the intention of it being part of creating a meaningful life. So is what I'm going to do, or what I'm doing now, going to create or make my life better or worse? And if it's worse, we're going to find something else, because it just supports. Will this thing I'm doing support making me a better person to have that meaningful life? Which means I will be making a difference, which means I will be living with passion, which is a lovely thing to do, isn't it? And I'll be improving my own gifts by learning more. So if you think that's a good way of thinking, I'd love to know. If you think there's a better way, because I know there's a better way. There's always a better way. This is just my first dive, as it were, into this thing of creating a meaningful life. I know I'm going to, maybe this whole podcast and all the episodes are part of that. And therefore there will still, all the new episodes will be part of that. Some specifically in this direction, or they'll just be there anyway. So this is my first dive. My first wetting my feet in the water, as it were. But if you think, and it's inspired you to think, or you know that you have a way that can add to this, evolve this into creating a meaningful life for all of us, please do share it with me. Share it with me via email, which is feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. If you want to, you can always record something. Just record it on your phone or whatever, and then just attach it to the email. That would be awesome. Or maybe upload it to, I don't know if you can anyway, I don't know how you do this, upload it to my Facebook page. And that's something called Personal Development Unplugged. And you've got my name, then you see my face and things like that. So, but there's a way of doing everything. So, and the audio is a good thing to do, because you can talk and just let it flow, save it and send it as an attachment. And as long as it's clean without any viruses, it'll be awesome. So wouldn't that be good? Please let me know how and what you thought about this, say by that email. But also, if you felt this has made a slight difference to you, and you sent that email to me, and even if you haven't, you thought, well, this is something important that other people should know. It's that age-old thing that at the end of every podcast, I ask you to share. Share this podcast, share your thoughts, share what you've learned. And more importantly, if there isn't more important than sharing this, is to live what you've learned. Experiment, strive. This isn't the golden rule, the only way, but it's a golden nugget, I think, of setting us looking in the right direction, living in the right direction, learning in the right direction, listening in the right direction, feeling in the right direction, and then acknowledge it. And that's the main thing. Because we've got those 5 keys to success. But one of them is just awareness of how much you've changed. Awareness of how you can change even more. So just be aware, get that act of gratitude to say thank you as you notice those changes, and tell your unconscious mind, I wonder what it would be like to live a meaningful life, but a more meaningful life every day. I wonder what that would be like if I was to be able to live and contribute by living a meaningful life, and a better meaningful life every day. This or something better. Now that is a good question, isn't it? So you might want to share that. Share that with your unconscious mind. I've just done it for you anyway, really, because I know that went straight in there. And then you can be surprised by feeling happy for no reason. Oh, there's another one. Anyway, I'm going to go and think about how else I can dive into my purposes. My purposes, my purpose, my passions, my gifts, and what other elements of a meaningful life make up a meaningful life. Anyway, I wish you every bit more of a meaningful life than you can stand, because it's time to fly.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.